There's genuinely one absolute fireball offense in this company, is if you see something that is wrong and you say nothing and I find out, I will kill you. Like, you're done.
Every time a dramatic person has departed, we have realized it is so much better without them.
People aren't going to empathize with you when you're having a tough week. It's like, oh yeah, cry in your dollar bill. To have a competitive advantage, to have a distinctive moat, you're going to have to stand alone. That actually takes some real confidence. To be a really effective leader, you have to have a sense of what your hot dogs are. I'm just going to be completely unreasonable and inflexible around those things. You're going to feel lonely sometimes, and you're going to feel a bunch of pressure.
My views on how to manage people really have evolved. I was wrong about a lot of things. The game that we're trying to play is be a premium enterprise value company. If people just think of HexClad as a cookware company, we are going to lose.
I find myself relearning the same lessons over and over again. I think one of the most dangerous ways to start a sentence inside of a company is I feel.
The single biggest pitfall that you can run into as a business owner is your own insecurity.
The bottom 5-10% that are genuinely not a good fit for the company, you're doing them a disservice by keeping them, and they're doing themselves a disservice by staying.
In investment banking, you're not treated like a human. You're a machine. Be the machine and go cry in the bathroom.
If I do my job well, I keep the money in the pockets of tens of millions of people, and I make their life better that way. Business is so much about managing people and managing yourself. Welcome to the Operators Podcast. My name is Mike Beckham, and we are proudly brought to you by Fulfill, Aftersell, Rich Panel, Northbeam, Sarah's Analytics, and Postscript. We are a community for entrepreneurs that are building things. And if you want to be a part of this community, you can listen to the podcast, but you can also go sign up for our newsletter. A ton of awesome information in there. We also partner with E-commerce Fuel, a forum for you to connect with other entrepreneurs that are building businesses where we can learn from one another. So without further ado, on to the pod.
Dealing with big box retailers means EDI connections. And that's often a trigger for needing an ERP system. We've been using EDI connections to Costco forever. And the only way that we've really solved that problem to make it seamless is through Fulfill. EDI adds complexity to everything you do, and Fulfill solves that complexity with their connections to their systems. You need Fulfill to move from being just a D2C brand to being a true multi-channel brand, because big box retailers are going to require you to connect to their systems using EDI. Let me tell you, it's way easier if you do it with Fulfill.
I think what you guys are saying, though, is like leadership has a cost. And when you're kind of an aspiring, ambitious up-and-comer, you see positions like CEO and you're just like, man, awesome. You get to tell people what to do. You're the boss. You make the big bucks, and you see all the upsides, and you just don't see any of the trade-offs. And I think what all of us have learned as we've sat in the chair is it's like, there are plenty of trade-offs. Like, and one of them is like, you do have to play a role, like you're saying, Jason, and you do have to, like, your ability to speak your mind is reduced. Your ability to be understood is reduced. You know, people aren't going to empathize with you when you're having a tough week. It's like, oh yeah, cry in your dollar bills, you know? And like, I don't even think it's reasonable to expect people to be able to understand or empathize. So it's like, yeah, you're going to have hard things, and other people aren't going to understand them, and they're not even going to be particularly sympathetic to them. And you're going to have a lot of things that you just have to keep to yourself, and you're going to feel lonely sometimes, and you're going to feel a bunch of pressure. And there's all these other great things that do come with it. But like, anybody who's listening to this, and like, this same way, when you're a 7-figure company, you're like, man, if I was an 8-figure company, things would be awesome. And it's like, yeah, there's some awesome things, but there's also some trade-offs waiting for you. And
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Like what you're saying, Mike, it hits home, because we are having to constantly change as leaders of exceptional businesses. My views on how to manage people, on how to run this business, they really have evolved. I mean, they are very different now in a good way. And like, I was wrong about a lot of things. Like, when it comes to managing people, I kind of still have a bit of an old school, like, I was a banker, I was a lawyer, get the job done or get out. I think it's really important to maintain that. But at the same time, you know, as the teams get bigger, as the organization gets bigger, as a leader, it becomes more about like people management, and knowing that, you know, not everyone is an A player, and knowing that these people are human. In investment banking, you're not treated like a human.
Yeah, you're a cog.
In big law, you're not treated like a human. It's like you're a machine. Be the machine and go cry in the bathroom, you know?
and that's made me the man I am today. But you can't expect that everywhere. Things evolve, so there's like a balance between just get it done, Jason, just get it done, and making people feel good. And I love what Matt said about the reviews, because we're getting close to the end of the year here, or this may air just like right at the the beginning of the year. We changed our fiscal this year, so we're doing all of our reviews in January, but we're prepping for that now. And Matt said, like, you get a job satisfaction survey, and like the bottom 10% who aren't satisfied with their job, well, clearly they should just be fired, right? Like, that's the thing about
they should be
it's
released to the
almost like
marketplace.
you should have a conversation where you're just saying like, hey, if you're really unhappy here, let me help you find a place where you're happier. Like,
Yes.
it doesn't even
Yes.
have to be punitive. It's just like, if you have 100 employees and 5 of them are just really not happy, then it's like, well, I don't
cater
know
to
that it
five.
makes you a bad person. It just makes it a bad fit.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Don't cater to the minority when you're building a team. Like, that is, I had to learn that lesson the hard way. And that's what I'm saying. It's like the bottom 5, 10%, whatever it is that are genuinely not a good fit for the company, you're doing them a disservice by keeping them, right? And they're doing themselves a disservice by staying. So,
well, you can't be all
like, help
things to
them.
all people,
No.
And I think that anytime you've led an organization, you figure that out really clearly. And one of the phrases I've said a lot around our organization recently is, it's like, hey, I'm not saying this is the best way to do things. I'm not saying this is the right way to do things, but this is the way that we're going to do things. And that's just pretty much what leadership is that you really, I don't even know if I believe in the idea of quote unquote best. I just see trade-offs with different ways of doing things, but you got to pick a lane. And this kind of, I'd love to hear you guys take on this. Like, when I'm going through and doing my one-on-ones, I will kind of come across ways of saying things that I'm like, that was kind of bouncing around in there, but I hadn't put it into words, and I think that's right. And so here's my kind of theory from yesterday I was sharing with my direct reports. I think to be a really good leader, in general, you have to be an open-minded person. You have to listen to feedback. You have to hear what other people are saying, but then you have to be almost completely unreasonable and inflexible in 2 or 3 key areas. That now, what those 2 or 3 key areas are, I don't think it has to be the same from leader to leader or organization to organization, but you have to have at least 2 or 3 areas. And I was thinking about like, well, what's kind of a parallel? And I was thinking of the Costco story with the hot dogs. This is like, you see this on Twitter every month, somebody posts it, but they famously have these $1.50 hot dogs. And I think Jim Senegal, I think this was his thing. And one of his key leaders came into him one day and is like, we can't sell the hot dogs at $1.50 anymore. And he was like, if you change the price of the hot dogs, I will effing kill you. And it kind of like made me think about this question of like, to be a really effective leader, you have to have a sense of what your hot dogs are. What are the things where it's like, I'm just going to be completely unreasonable and inflexible around those things because they're that vitally important. And then I'm going to be really open-handed and flexible on a bunch of other things. And I'm going to hear feedback and I'm willing to go with the flow. But for me to be the leader I need to be, I've got to have a couple of these issues that I'm just like, this is how it's going to be. You guys think that's right?
I 100% think it's right. I'll take it. I think, yes, it's the main thing. Keep the main thing. The main thing is another way to say that. There's like the theory of like in a business, you should focus intensely on the constraint. Like if there's like usually 1 or 2 constraints in a business, that if you just focus on those 2 things, your business will get better. I think every company, particularly like tie this to the leadership thing, the way your culture is built also has to be around a few non-negotiables, right? And how you run your team and how that team shows up, they need to know what those non-negotiables are. I think like values gets a bad rap for this because they kind of got construed into this like frou. But really what it comes down to is, what are the things that we believe? Like, what principles or what ways that we operate? These are not negotiable. Like one of mine, Mike.
Yeah, I want to know what you guys' hot dogs are.
I'll tell you,
that's the question. What are your hot dogs?
When it comes to people, like I have told people, like there's genuinely one absolute fireable offense in this company, is if you see something that is wrong and you say nothing and I find out, I will kill you. Like, you're done. right? Like you're just doing everybody a disservice at that point, and there's no room for that. I'll tell you, like, Jason, the whole, cultural thing, like this non-negotiable pieces, I am often saying, my response to things is more often than not, do you want the answer that makes you feel good, or do you want the honest one? Because they sometimes aren't the same. Right? And your job, I think, in the seat that you have, at least for you guys and myself, is to just say the thing that is true or you believe to be true, regardless of how it makes people feel. And you kind of need to have a company where, like, that's a non-negotiable. Like, you should just be able to speak plainly. Like, never attack people. I don't do that. But I definitely, like, I am brutal with attacking problems. Like, that's a non-negotiable in this company. And that's cultural. Longtime sponsor Northbeam is launching incrementality later this quarter. This means that you can now have the trifecta of marketing measurement all in one platform. That is multi-touch attribution, media mix modeling, and incrementality holdouts, all inside of Northbeam. You can automate that lift testing end to end, unify results with your MTA and your MMM. This is a lot of letters, but if you know, you know. And you can start to cut what doesn't work, and you can scale what works. And you can do this all with confidence. This is why this is such an incredible add to Northbeam. Northbeam's incrementality measures what results marketing is actually generating, not just what they're claiming credit for. As a CEO, that's like music to my ears. Sign up now and you can lock in 50% off unlimited tests for the year.
Jason, what are your hot dogs?
One of the things that I really focus on is making decisions and taking emotion and drama out of work and out of decisions. It's incredible how often people allow their emotions to affect their decision in business. I think it's the fatal flaw, and everyone suffers from it, including me, right? It's like, that's who the are you, like, to tell me that, or like, this is my department, but you just got to check that. You just got to be like, wait, I'm system A here. I got to get into system B, critical thinking, thoughtful, logical thinking, decision-making mode. System A was built to help you survive in the outdoors with predators when you had to hunt and live and fight. And that's not, the fight is different now. The fight is applying logic and reason to succeed. And I just see it. And like, the one thing that I'm constantly thinking about, well, I'm constantly thinking about a lot of things, but one thing that I am constantly thinking about is like, who is a drama person? Because every time a dramatic person has departed, we have realized it is so much better without them. And that's all. They were dramatic because they were making emotional decisions, making decisions based on emotion. So my hot dog is not allowing people to consistently make emotional decisions that cause drama, that they will hurt the business, period.
This might be a bit contrarian because we're in consumer and we sell things to people. And oftentimes to sell those things, we have to, we're building messages, right? Like, we design visuals, copy that are compelling. They make people feel things. I think one of the most dangerous ways to start a sentence inside of a company is I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like. And I hate saying that because, like, the marketer in me is like, no, man, like, write better, make better marketing that makes people feel things. But what you're hitting on, Jason, is that internally, when you're building like high performance teams, they need to become, I would say, like, far more objective than and data driven than they should be emotionally driven. Now, the weird part of that is that great CEOs,
are intuitive,
great decision makers, often have an incredible gut feeling.
But Matt, I think what makes it powerful. I think we were going to say the same thing, Jason, which is, I think what makes intuitive people really powerful is when they pair that intuitive thinking and feeling with data. So there are a lot of times where I will have a hunch, but there's a rigor and a discipline to saying, I'm not just going to go out spouting off my hunch. I'm going to actually see if objectively if I can verify that hunch. And I've said this before on this pod, but one of my phrases I started saying around the company is when people would say, I think, or I feel, I'd be like, it's a knowable answer, or we can get real data. We can test your hunch. We should do it, right? You think we'd sell more if we had free shipping? Knowable answer, right? You think we could drive costs down 10%? Knowable answer. Like, let's go find out. And so there's definitely room for intuition, thankfully. I mean, I'm 100% intuitive on Myers-Briggs, but what I've learned with my personality in particular is that I'm a persuasive speaker and that I'm highly intuitive. And so if I'm not careful, I can get a hunch and then I can get very charismatic and persuasive about that hunch before I actually realize whether or not that hunch is right, and that I've got to do the work. And I need to have an environment where people are like, hey, show your work. And not just make it sound good, but like, show me, prove to me that you've actually thought this all the way through. And that's healthy when you have that, when you have both, right?
You and I have the same disease.
on the gut feeling, right? This is about time in the game, and the leaders have risen to their position through experience and application of good judgment and making better decisions on average over time. We're all going to make bad decisions, like we all have.
Sean here to tell you about Ceres Analytics and Ceres Pulse. Ridge is profitable every single day, and we've taken that super seriously since we built this business. We track contribution margin by day. We look at the SKUs we sell every single day, and we have to do this manually up until Ceres Analytics came out. We take all of our SKU level data, we build it into the data warehouse. Everything that goes into making a true P&L, I get on a day-to-day basis. Ceres Pulse gives you clarity, so your COO and your CFO and your CMO start speaking the same language. Contribution margin shifts teams away from hoping profits survive the season to managing them in real time. Book a walkthrough with the Ceres Pulse team today. Click the link in the description, and thank you, Ceres, for bringing you this show.
This is actually one of my biggest problems is I very often can feel the right answer, but not express why it is the right answer. This is one of the things that frustrates me most in my life, in my career, but more often than not, and more often than most people, I am correct. I know I am. And it's just like, I can't get it out. I can't verbalize it. But what it is years and years and years of experience and success that is in it. It's inside you. It's walking. You don't have to think about how to walk.
It is so hard when somebody comes to you with something, like one of your people comes to you with something, and immediately in your head, you're like, this is going to fail. This is a bad idea. And you can't actually put into words exactly why. You just have the spidey sense. And it's really challenging for a couple reasons. One is sometimes you're wrong. And it isn't a bad idea, just something, an experience you had in the past, like kind of prejudiced you against this idea. But also it's dangerous because if somebody comes to me with an idea and I'm just like, that won't work, we're not going to do that. In their mind, if I don't really walk them through the reasoning, and sometimes even if I do, well, you don't get to see the counterfactual. So if I just kill it and we don't do it, then it's like, that would have worked. They just don't know. And your people can start to be that way. And so sometimes I've learned that sometimes you've got to like let people try things to be able to share your intuition. And I've still not figured out how to do that balance, but I know exactly what you're talking about, Jason, where somebody starts saying something and you just immediately start to feel uncomfortable. Like, I have seen something like this before and it went really, really poorly, or I just kind of know this is not going to work, but I don't know exactly how to put my finger on it. And it's going to be really discouraging, unsatisfying to this person if I just say that's a bad idea and I can't tell you why.
I do this with customer feedback. I don't know if you guys do the same. Like, I read so much of our customer feedback, like every review, all the post-purchase surveys. I just like to read them. And what you're describing, Jason, is like, there's just an intuition. It's like you can read, if I can read 1,000 reviews and pick the 4 that matter, right? And you just have a feeling like, oh, that's actually really insightful. Like what that one person said. The tricky part where I struggle is like, how do you build this muscle in a company? Because like on one hand, I think that it does come from years and years and years of experience. So like Jason, the thing you're describing is pattern matching. Like you just intuitively pattern match off of like, you can't even tell what you're matching off of. The computer in your head is just like, we've seen this before. This is the conclusion we're getting to. It just can't demonstrate the formula that got you there. But then on the other hand, there is like some people just naturally have it. Like I have people on my team who have like incredible intuition, particularly when it comes to customer, product, like all that stuff. But yet I still think that statement, I feel, is a dangerous thing to allow to be a regular way to lead conversations in a company. It's like all that to say, I still think that if you have a culture or you're finding that is the way that people begin most of their arguments, culturally you have a leadership problem.
But here's the issue with that, Matt. 50% of people are feelers and not thinkers.
I know.
And the vast majority of women are feelers, not thinkers. And so
Jason doesn't like feelers.
Well, it's like
get rid of those people.
When you're a highly logic-driven person, it's like everybody should work the way that I work. But it's like many people don't. And like you said, many of our customers don't work that way. And so this is the probably an example of where you have to have diversity. If I had a bunch of, very logical androids running my company, we would just miss all kinds of things because primarily we sell to young moms. Like that's our demographic. And you know what is not the guiding principle of all young moms is a purely logic-based approach to life. Like it's one of the most emotion-driven, in a good way, seasons of life, right? It's all about like protecting my kids and taking care of them and looking out for my family. And so, running a brand, trying to sell to them where it's all about logic is going to be difficult. I don't know what the balance is here, but I do know that what you don't want is you don't want the loudest person in the room or the most emotional person in the room to be able to sway discussions simply by saying things like, I really feel like we should do this.
I think, so what you're hitting on too, like as a consumer company, I think about this a decent amount, right? Which is, what are the reasons that people buy from us? So like, let's use HexClad. HexClad, you sell right now, primarily it's cookware, right? Lots of different types of cookware. Great product. We know that. There's like a very like functional benefit to the product, right? So there's some amount of people that are like, I need to buy a pan. I need to cook things. So they're buying for like a problem solution reason. Then there is another portion of people who are buying from an identity perspective. Like, I want the same cookware that Gordon has, or I want the same cookware that like some chef on Instagram has. I'm going to buy cookware, but I'm going to buy this one because like it's speaking to some portion of my identity. I think, Mike, what you're hitting on the, like that intuition from and how you construct team, I think a lot of that gets driven by how much your product skews to function versus identity and how it shows up in the market. Because if you're a far more identity driven brand, then you're going to need more people that are attuned emotionally to customers that you're trying to serve than you would if you were a pure, like, you buy this product because like you're going to buy this knee brace because this knee brace fixes your knee pain. Like super functional problem solution. Yeah. Not a lot of emotion required there outside of just scaring them and telling them how painful their life is.
I think to your point, going back to this idea of hot dogs, I've had, we're 10 years into Simple Modern, and I had a little bit of an epiphany. Epiphany is not the right word, but like a refocusing moment over the last month where I'm just like, what I get really passionate about is driving value to customers.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a very logic-driven thought process. And I just don't want to play the kind of popularity trend game. And there are a lot of people in our industry playing that. I don't think I'm particularly good at it. And I don't get particularly passionate about it. I get really excited about the idea that if I do my job well, I keep the money in the pockets of tens of millions of people, and that I make their life better that way. And I know exactly how to do that, right? Using like the skills that I have and logic and things like that. And so there's a lot of different ways you could run a drinkware brand. And I'm just more and more, there's a lot of different ways we could run all the companies under our umbrella. And my kind of hot dog moment is like, we're just going to be about value. Like, we're going to be about that. And there are going to be some people are like, that's not the coolest way to do it. Or maybe you could make more money. You could be more trendy if you did this or that. And it's like, I don't care. We're not doing that. We are going to be the company that when you buy something from us, you're like, this is amazing that I got this for this price. It's amazing. I got this level of quality, this level of taste, this level of style, this level of whatever. And I got it for this price. And it's been amazingly clarifying that, okay, so that helps all my leaders know exactly what they need to do. It helps us know the kind of diversity that we need and don't need on our team. It helps me to understand how to be the best version of myself as a leader, and it plays to my strengths. And so I think these ideas kind of come together, Matt, that you have to like think about your organization and what your organization needs. And depending on the way you're trying to be great and effective as an organization, you probably need a different balance of this stuff. But for us and what we're trying to be.
It's interesting that you had to like I don't know if you guys, Jason, if you do this too, but like I find myself relearning the same lessons over and over again in my career. And it's like, it drives me nuts where I'm like, no, I know this. Why am I having to relearn this? And I think what it is that like your context is constantly changing, right? So like where you are today is very different from where you are 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Like, Mike, you're describing this like in the last month, you've had this sort of like re-epiphany around the brand. I only know the simple modern, like if somebody said like what's simple modern, and it's like what makes it successful, I would say they figured out the value equation.
Yeah.
Right. In drinkware. And they,
I'll take it a step
that
further,
side
Matt.
of it.
When I remember on an ad in our first year, it was like style, quality, value. Like that's what the ad said. That was it. And it's like, yeah, that's it. That's what we do here. Style, quality, value. And it almost at points became pejorative inside of the organization of like, well, that's how a white label brand thinks. So that's how, whatever. And to some extent, I allowed the organization to drift to a mindset of how do we charge more for our products over, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. And listen, we had an amazing couple of years in there. Our margins, our profitability, it was off the charts. And I think it just allowed me to take my focus off a little bit of how that's the thing that makes us great. And so, like you said, Matt, from the outside, it's kind of obvious that that's what we do and what we should do. But internally, we kind of drifted from it. And I have a theory about why. And I'd love to hear you guys take on this, because I think this is really like, if you're on Twitter, if you listen to the Operators podcast, here's my theory. My theory is that the single biggest pitfall that you can run into as a business owner is your own insecurity. That the more you read business books, the more you listen to podcasts, the more you look at what other people are doing, the more you see smart people that are running their businesses in smart ways. And you're like, well, we're not running our business in that way, but they are, and they're being really successful. And so I should do that. And it's very difficult to have the kind of confidence and security in your identity that you're like, yeah, there's a bunch of other people doing listen, I could not run HexClad. I could not do what Jason and Danny have done. I couldn't do it. I don't have that skill set. I do not think I could build that business. And me being an effective leader is being able to look at that business and say, I deeply admire that business, but I'm not going to let the way that they run that business and that business's success warp my approach to running my business, because we're just running different races. And I think that I consider myself a pretty self-secure person, but even in me, there's this tendency to like look at all of these people that I admire, that I'm friends with, and the way they run their businesses, and to feel like, man, I must be doing it wrong because I'm not doing this thing that they're doing and it's going so well for them. And so another way of saying this is like, businesses that are really good are good because they're differentiated, they're distinct, they have moats, they have competitive advantages. by definition, to have a competitive advantage, to have a distinctive moat, you have to be an N of one. Other people don't have what you have. And so everybody wants that. But what you don't realize is that means you're going to have to stand alone. If you're scaling an e-commerce brand today, ads alone aren't enough. Aftersell focuses on the one moment that every brand already owns, after checkout, and turns the post-purchase moment into more profit. Monetize every order with post-purchase offers and thank you page experiences without disrupting checkout or hurting conversion. Enterprise-grade tech used by Gap, Ticketmaster, Macy's, and Target, now driving results for brands like True Classic, HexClad, Ridge, and Jones Road. I would know. This is the reason I ended up buying 3 pans from HexClad instead of 2. Aftersell has already generated over $1 billion in additional revenue for e-commerce brands, revenue that doesn't require more traffic or higher CAC. So check out Aftersell and tell them that the operator sent you. You're going to have to run your business model different than all your competitors. And that actually takes some real confidence, is kind of my
Well, there's
take.
also, what's also, but people don't realize is like you got to have a lot of good breaks go your way. You got to have the vision, like, the original Panzerism, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Like but what that really means, that luck part, you can't get lucky if you don't work hard, and you can't get lucky if you don't have good strategy. But like, it takes a lot of positive breaks to go a certain way, right? And you put yourself in a position for to capitalize on those things. And I think that's been, to me, it starts with a great product, but everything else from there is like, okay, how do we capitalize and execute on everything, and how do we continue to maintain our edge? Like, one of the
Jason,
things,
do you think about positioning much at HexClad? Like, where you position in the market, and like what Mike is talking about, like, what are the things that makes HexClad particularly unique? Like, what is your, I want to say competitive advantage, but I think the problem with the statement competitive advantage is typically like 2 or 3 things combined. It's not like one variable. Like, to me, the
It's a
HexClad
stacking.
competitive advantage is not just Gordon Ramsay, right? There's like probably 2 other things that make you guys N of one. And I'm curious, Jason, like, is this a active and ongoing conversation at HexClad, or is it, no, we know what it is, we just keep the main thing the main thing?
Oh, it's a constant conversation. It's like, I have this North Star. I'm actually, it's funny because we're talking about this right now with my presentation for our annual meeting, right? But like, my North Star is growing HexClad as fast as we can while maintaining best-in-class profit margins. That, and to do that, we have to be not just a cookware company, but a best-in-class consumer brand. Those are the things that I'm constantly saying. I say it to everyone. They're probably bored of hearing me say it. I feel like I'm repeating myself all the time, but it just bears repeating. And so, like, we were texting this morning about product market fit. Like, all these things, you have to be looking ahead and watching your back, and constantly thinking about how do we, for, in our case, if we are just a cookware company, we're going to lose. I mean, we're going to lose the game that we're trying to play, which is to be a premium enterprise value company and a best-in-class consumer brand. I've talked to investors, I've talked to private equity, I talked to the public guys, I talked to everyone, and if people just think of HexClad as a cookware company, we are going to lose. We will make plenty of money, but we will lose the game that we're trying to play. The game that we're trying to play is be a premium enterprise value company. And if you look at SEB Group or any of these other like big guys in cookware, they trade at very low multiples, but that's not who we want to be. So we're always focusing on who do we want to be, and what we want to be is different or better than where we are today.
Yeah, I think the point that you're making, Jason, which is worth really emphasizing here, is that you think that business is one singular game. It's really like it can be 1,000 different games, and every company is kind of playing its own particular game. There's some commonalities, but like the game that you guys play at HexClad is a very different game than we're kind of playing at Simple Modern. There's similarities, like, you can't lose money or you go out of business, but like, we're not trying to become public. And so like, we don't think, I shouldn't think about valuation basically at all in any of my decision making and what's going to get me a multiple from investors. Cause I don't want investors, like I literally do not want their money. And so like, you just have to understand what game you're playing.
But maximizing the value of your business is always a good, like there's
Sure.
like there's this,
I guess what I'm saying is the way I'm going to maximize my business value is through cash flows because I don't want outside investors, if that makes sense. So that makes the game that we're playing different.
Yeah, like the game of like how do I throw off the most cash is I mean that's
totally different.
That should yeah, but it should be part of the equation. Like people love talking about valuation, right?
Yeah.
Valuation is driven by sales growth and profit margin. Like that's what drives valuation. But cash profit actually should sort of be driven by the same thing over the long term because valuations should be the net present value of your future cash flows, right? So we're kind of doing the same thing. They're just, but the goal may be different, but I think it's actually the same. There may be slightly more focus on, okay, like, well, let's focus on let's not sacrifice generating cash now to chase growth. And that's like, there are a lot of companies out there that they spend more on marketing than we do, right? They're much less efficient than we are on marketing, and they're driving sales growth. But so we could spend a lot more and grow a lot faster. We could probably double our growth. We could have doubled our growth this year and halved our margins, right? And ultimately, we might wind up in the same operating profit position, but we choose not to do that as well. Like we choose to say, okay, we're going to hold the line on a certain margin. So I just don't think that what we're talking about, Mike, are all that different.
Well, I think where it gets more different is like that there's all these qualitative, like to me, the money piece of it is like a piece of the business, but I'm also like, I'm trying to optimize for quality of life and I'm trying to optimize for impact. And so like how I make, like, here's a good example. How do I think about sponsoring the Thunder, for example? Is it a purely cash flow driven, or is there also like a kind of community impact, like, quality of life piece? And it's like, well, it's really all three. It checks all those boxes in some kind of different way. And so like, I would think about that decision I might think about that decision differently than you would think about the Yankees, for example.
Yeah, there's this ability to kind of like, I call it the do fun stuff. Like,
for sure.
Factor. It's nice when you don't report to anyone, right? I mean, you probably have to report to a lender, right, to some extent, but like that's probably pretty easy for you to satisfy what you need to report to them. Like when you
don't have any debt right now, guys.
Oh, there's
cash on the balance sheet.
Awesome.
No debt.
That's awesome.
Every SaaS company says they are AI powered, but very few can explain what it actually does for the revenue of my brand. This is why Postscript's approach stood out to us. They don't just build AI for demos or buzzwords. They built it to drive real incremental revenue. Postscript's AI, called Shopper, it shows up inside of SMS at moments with real buyer intent when shoppers are likely asking questions, hesitating, maybe even about to drop off. Shopper can answer product questions instantly, answer questions about fit, availability, recommendations, order issues, the kinds of stuff that people usually bounce for. This means more conversions, higher AOV, less lost demand, so you are driving more revenue and doing it more efficiently. Check out Shopper from Postscript. We use it at Pila, which is why I am telling you to check it out.
When you have no one to report to, and like, yeah, you get to do whatever the heck you want. I think that's awesome. I mean, that's a nice place to be. We're in a different position where there are people of different investors and owners in different stages of life who, they have different requirements. It's nice to be uncomplicated to the extent that you are, Mike, and say like, we're going to run this thing. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have a great quality of life. We're going to make a community impact. And then you get to run for governor of Oklahoma.
No, the quality of life is that I don't have to run for governor of Oklahoma. That's the great thing. I get to have influence without being a politician. That would be the best. So, Matt, you had a really, I think, compelling idea to talk about this idea of product market fit, which I think is such a great topic. And you shared some of the thoughts with us. I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, because I think it actually ties into what you guys are hitting on. So like your ability to generate outsized financial returns comes from some combination of ingredients, right? And the one I've been thinking about a lot lately is product market fit, and particularly how markets move, right? So like you could have the same product selling into a market, right? A market being, say, a customer with a certain value proposition, not purely like a market as in it's a country, but that market can move, right? Like the reasons that people buy things can move. And we've talked a lot about consumer sentiment, where is the consumer going? So naturally to me, I just come back to product. I think Jason, probably we share that. Like it's like, what is my product? What are the attributes of that product? And then what are all the reasons that people buy it? And to me, it's all linked. Like product market fit, this idea of like markets are more liquid and they move around a bit. We're an identity driven product, and our competitive advantage is like a combination of things. But really what I'm getting at is like, how often should brands be thinking about the market they serve? How do you guys do this at your companies? Like when you look at the products you have, rather than go develop new products, are you just looking for new ways to sell those products first? Or are you like, how does this work internally? Because this is a big question for me.
I just wanted to find what we're talking about. Are you asking the question, how do you stay in product market fit, Matt?
Yeah. Like how do you maintain it over time?
Yeah,
because
I think
markets move.
It kind of draw an analogy here. I've always said that like product market fit's kind of like being in love. It's like you kind of know when you're in it, like it's just like, oh man, like I just can't keep up. People just, people just want more and more of my stuff. And I'm like, the analogy of going from pushing the boulder up the hill to it going down the hill and you're chasing it. But I think the love analogy can kind of work because anybody who's been in a long-term romantic relationship knows that you can fall in love, but it takes a lot of work to stay in love. And that if you don't, you just grow apart from somebody that you can feel a lot of affection for. And I think product market fits that way. Like I'll give a kind of an example with our market that getting product market fit is usually this, you said this earlier, Matt, it's this combination of, I have some kind of a stew of 2 or 3 or 4 factors that creates this really valuable and unique offering in the market. And the customers are digging. And sometimes some of those pieces are kind of proprietary and other people can't have them. It's a cornered resource. Gordon's a good example. And there's one Gordon Ramsay. But usually for e-com brands, it's not. It's more, I've put together 2 or 3 things that, other people could do it, but I've done a particular kind of pairing of things. Like, other people make phone cases, other people make them toxin free, other people, the things you guys do with peel case. But you've kind of found the right combination of things to kind of find product market fit. Well, if you study what markets do, markets are pretty efficient. And when you come up with a good pairing of things. So for us with Simple Modern earlier, it was like understanding that style was really a piece. So that means the colors and the things we print on the bottles, that the prices we offered it at, that the quality level and the features that the lids have in the sales channels. We found a really good combo of those things that nobody was doing quite our thing. And because nobody was doing quite our thing, the market was like, yes, this is great. And they bought it. But you know what happens when you come to market and you're successful doing that? Other people see that. And other people are like, yeah, I think I'm going to do exactly what Pila is doing, or I'm going to do exactly what Simple Modern is doing. And so you have other people kind of rush to market with very similar solutions. And this is where you can fall out of product market fit, because if you're not continually evolving the unique combination of offering that you're presenting to the market, then you look up one day and you realize there's now 4 people doing exactly what you were doing, and you're not that unique anymore, and you don't have the same level of demand, the same level of product market fit. And we've really seen this. I mean, water bottles are such a commoditized industry, and there's so many people selling them. And anytime you do anything unique, people are going to see it. And like, as a really simple example of this, we were fairly early, I think, on the identification that like the best market you can go after in water bottles is going to be women 25 to 45. And maybe like the clearest example of this is Stanley has been around for over 100 years. And they basically turned on a dime and went from a complete men's brand to a complete women's brand, like almost overnight, because they just realized it was that much more lucrative. So this is where I think markets move around, Matt, to your point, and why if you're not evolving your offering, then you will fall out of product market fit. And you can happen quite quickly with how competitive the market is today and how quickly it moves.
Yeah, and I think that, Jason, to tie this back to like this whole valuation thing, we've talked a lot in the past about equality of revenue, like the quality of the company also as a driver of the multiple, right? Like the current example is like Palantir has an insane valuation by most measures, except when you dive into it, it's like the quality of that revenue is pretty nuts. Like it's very unique. Like they're a one of one company. And I think, Jason, when I hear you talk about like your valuation is just a function of margin and growth rate, like how much profit do you generate and then how fast are you growing, I immediately start thinking of the things that make that happen, right? And that to me is like, that's a product market fit thing. That's a cultural relevance thing. That's a how long has the brand been around thing. Like there's all these variables that tie into it. Have you guys actually encountered competition in a way that has made you shift around how you put the brand in market?
You know, we started with a superior product, right? And from the beginning, there was a vision to be something, to have something around the brand, to have a brand cachet, not just based on the product. And it might have been something to do with the look and feel of the product, but was like, HexClad should be the badass cookware brand. Like that was kind of how it started. And then it evolved to, I think, something even better, which was to be a best-in-class consumer brand, be a consumer brand, a best-in-class brand, not just be the badass cookware. And basically building a brand. And we went through this exercise. You guys all remember because we were all working together, friends and chat and everything back then when we kind of rebranded the company back in 2022 and we redid our website. This was like implementing the vision of like, how do we do it? How do we build a best-in-class? How do we build a brand around this great product? And then in 2023, we said, you know what? We need to be really heavily focused on creating great content. And we hired a great head of content who had a lot of experience in, filming in film. And then Danny's great at this. I've learned a lot about it. And we had this mission to be like a content machine. And everyone talks about content and ads, et cetera. But we really wanted to, take it to the next level. And you're seeing it drop now, actually. We started doing this in 2023 and talking about this, but I don't know if you guys saw the Open to Close series that we did. The Dre Gordon commercial, like all the content that we've put out in the last year and a half, I think has been like really exceptional. So that's we just kind of look at the levers to build a great business and build a great brand. And we're constantly reviewing what those levers are. And they're kind of the same, but you might shift focus on some. Like some people say, we got to grow. International growth is the key, or increasing brand awareness is the key, or new products is the key. And there's like this, I think it's an equation where the variables change, or the constants change in the equation to do that. So that's just like the way we sit around and talk about it. It's like Danny, Niles, and I, and a few other people at the company. Like that's the way we think about it.
What's up, operators? Welcome to the Rich Panel ad read. Rich Panel has been a sponsor for over 12 months. I've been a paying customer for over 12 months. And guess what? I just renewed to pay again for another year. We have cut our SaaS bill in half, and automation dropped our cost per ticket by 70%. Our CSAT has also improved from 88%, which is still really good, to 96%, best in class, all powered by Rich Panel. I told them last year, hey, you guys need to do the same thing with returns. And now Rich Panel has a returns portal. It's built to cut down your tickets and convert more refunds into exchanges. They do the heavy lifting, data import, self-service, retention flows, team training, all of it, and it'll be live in 2 weeks. If you want to save 30% guaranteed on help desk and now returns, book a demo.
I think the way that you guys have used content, Jason, as a part of the unique product offering has been very, very cool. And it makes it, it's an example of how the digital world makes new things possible. You're pairing digital content with physical pans in a way that it has really worked very, very effectively.
But that fits us too. Like, that's not for everyone. It's just we've known this for years. Like, you go on Instagram, you see like people's puppies, you see people's cars, you see them cooking, or you see women in bikinis. Like, so, we're very fortunate in that this is like I always said this, we're in a very contentable vertical.
Yep.
And we just like focused on executing it well.
Yeah. We're looking at all of the ways that we position in the market. And then what we're trying to do is like match up the ways that we position in the market to like the things that we consider are giving us competitive advantage, right? Like Mike, lots of people sell phone cases. Lots of people sell phone cases with lots of designs on them. Some of them are even going after they're coming after our sort of like sustainable toxin-free messaging. But then we're the only ones that do it domestically. We're the only ones with like the kinds of negative working capital that we have available to us. So like, what are all these things that give us competitive advantage that we then can leverage in the ways that we go to market? This is like a big question for us right now. So I appreciate
and that's but that's also you being a good operator and a good marketer. Like, you're talking about the toxin-free side. Like, this is obviously a hot button, right?
Yep.
That everyone is on. And I think it's great to jump on a hot button and work with it, but then it actually kind of becomes table stakes, and then there's a new hot button.
Totally.
Right. So
I think that's what I'm saying, is that the bar just goes higher and higher over time. Being really effective at selling phone cases 5 years ago is totally different than being effective today.
Yeah.
And it'll be an even higher bar 5 years from now.
Yep.
Everybody loves this.
Yeah, I know my custom HexClad. Yeah.
Everybody loves it.
Let's go.
This is a fun conversation. I like the tie-in between company value and like, what are you building? How do you run the company? And then this thinking of like, how is the company positioned? That's the products you sell and how they're positioned. I got a lot from this.
Yeah. What's your takeaway, Jason?
My takeaway is just that I continually do this podcast simply to learn from you guys. I mean it. I got to tell you, I find half this e-com stuff boring AF, but I show up because I want to talk to you guys. And I like that we talked about more high level strategic thinking today, because I think that's just super, super valuable. And so thank you, guys.
Yeah. I think my big takeaway is just that business is so much about managing people and managing yourself. I mean, I just think the longer I do it, the more I realize that. And I like the discussion that we had around how much do you lean on intuition, how fact driven do you make your teams, and that depends on your business, depends on you as a leader. I think that's really helpful. That's something I'm processing through right now. So, and I'm the same way, Jason. Love learning from you guys. And I really love that you guys have different businesses than me. I think that was kind of a point I was making earlier, that it's fascinating learning from people that aren't situated exactly the same as you, and to hear what they're learning. So, all right, guys, I think that's it. Matt, good luck with planning.
Have fun.
Thanks, boys. Yes, sir.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. That is a wrap. Thank you to all of our sponsors that make the pod possible. We do this because we love talking with each other, and we love sharing with you the things we're learning. And we hope that they're helpful as you're building whatever it is that you're working on. Really, Operators as a whole exists to help make people empowered, to help them know what's possible, that they can just go and do things. You can actually build stuff. So we hope that you got something in today's episode that'll help you to build something amazing, and we will see you next time.